Tonight's solutions on making the TTC safer after the recent spate of violent incidents.
I want the TTC to be not just safe, be perceived as safe, so that people are encouraged to return to transit.
Transit riders, workers, and advocates gathering tonight to discuss possible solutions and whether the city's decision to deploy dozens of police officers to patrol the TTC should be one of them. Plus,
adrenaline just switched on real fast for me, so I just dashed out my house, ran out here bare feet.
A Toronto man managed to track down and recover his stolen truck. We'll tell you how and why police are cautioning people not to do the same. And
this is going to be an expensive, painful, time-consuming process.
At 130 years old, Ontario's legislature is in need of some major renovations. Costly work that could shut down the building for years. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. It's been 2 weeks since dozens of Toronto police officers were deployed to patrol the TTC. This following a spate of violent incidents targeting both transit riders and workers. Well, tonight, concerned citizens gathered for a town hall to discuss what they'd like to see done to improve safety. And as Dale Manukduk reports, enforcement was not on their list.
We offer post-crisis follow-up.
Over 150 people gathered online and in person at Centennial College to ask questions.
Whose safety are we talking about here? And which public gets to take up space?
Last month, there was a string of violent incidents on the transit system, including multiple stabbings, fired BB guns, and other assaults. In response, the city added 25 special constables and 10 streets to homes outreach workers along the TTC.
There's this sort of complex intersection of, housing, mental health, addiction, crisis, and these are not things the TTC is really in the business of managing.
Frankly, a number of the incidences of violences that we've heard on the
outreach worker Lorraine Lamb feels people with mental illness and the unhoused are being unfairly demonized, potentially resulting in increased violence towards them.
These kinds of assumptions that the city piles on just tells the public, yes, these people are dangerous, when really they're not.
Police have also been added to the system. Some 80 officers now patrol at a cost of $1.7 million per month in paid overtime.
In a perfect world, we wouldn't need an increased police presence, but unfortunately, there have been a number of these higher profile incidents that require us to respond.
Many who attended the town hall expressed frustration that the solution has been more enforcement.
We would like to see greater investment into prevention. So looking at the root causes of violence, we need greater resources and funding so that people in communities have access to housing, income, services, and supports.
The town hall broke out into groups to have smaller discussions and generate ideas on how to make the system safer. TTC Riders, which organized the event, says they'll release recommendations in the coming days. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
The province's chief coroner has announced it will hold an inquest into the death of Kira Kagan. The 4-year-old girl was found dead with her father at the bottom of Rattlesnake Point Conservation Area in Milton exactly 3 years ago. At the time, police said they were both found with significant trauma consistent with a fall. Kira's mother, Jennifer Kagan, believed the death was a murder-suicide. That assertion has not been tested in court. In a statement released today, Jennifer Kagan's lawyers said Jennifer struggled at every turn to call attention to the danger that her ex-husband presented and to seek help. It goes on to say the coroner's inquest is an important step in the road to accountability and shining a light on the neglect that led to her death. A date for the inquest has not yet been set, but the province says it will examine the circumstances around Kira's death and may make recommendations to prevent further deaths like hers. A report is out tonight on the 2019 incident in Kitchener where 2 pedestrians were struck and injured by a GO train. The Transportation Safety Board says the province is not doing its part to ensure the safety of provincially owned rail crossings.
One, they didn't have a regulatory framework that would allow them to provide effective oversight. And 2, they didn't have the personnel with the expertise, the experience, the training. They weren't receiving inspection reports from Transport Canada because of that. And therefore they cannot provide effective oversight of provincially regulated railways in Ontario.
The injured victims were a woman and a child. The track in the area belongs to Metrolinx, which means it falls to the province to regulate and oversee safety. Transportation Safety Board Chair Kathy Fox says their investigation uncovered several systemic issues, but did not find anyone at fault for the 2019 incident. A Canada-wide arrest warrant has been issued for one of the suspects in a Hollywood-style break-and-enter at Vaughn Mills Mall last week. It happened around 1 in the morning on February 1st. Two thieves used a stolen car to smash their way through the glass entrance of the mall. They then drove the car to an electronics store, broke in, stole merchandise, then made their way out of the mall by smashing through a different glass entrance. Police have identified one of the suspects as 19-year-old Israel Muamba from Montreal. He faces a slew of charges, including mischief and theft over $5,000, as well as dangerous driving. Police are encouraging him to seek legal counsel and turn himself in. When one Toronto man's truck was stolen last month, he decided to take matters into his own hands, tracking the vehicle even after police told him not to. Meg Roberts has more on what happened next.
One small little cut right here in the grill.
That gave thieves access to a cable that disables the alarm on Alan Renier's vehicle. Logging into his truck's app on his phone 20 minutes later, he discovered it was no longer outside his Toronto home.
How long do you think it took them to?
Minutes.
Renier had 2 air tags in his vehicle.
This was able to confirm the location at where they hid the vehicle. And I started to panic, so I ran inside, grabbed my spare keys for another vehicle and called the police. And they said, if you carry on pursuing it, we're going to end the call. At that point, I ended the call for them, tracked the location and went straight to my vehicle where it was sitting.
His bright blue truck was parked here at a Canada Post parking lot in Mississauga, about 15 minutes away from his home. After calling Peel police, he says he watched them drive past his truck 3 times and then called them to say they couldn't find it.
I said, excuse me, I'm staring at it.
Renier flagged down the officers and they brought him to his vehicle. Toronto police in a statement told CBC News, in cases where GPS information is available, police caution the caller to not put themselves in danger, not to engage the thieves, and not to pursue the vehicle if it's mobile. But Renier is wondering if he would have gotten his vehicle back if he didn't take matters into his own hands.
At this point, if my truck got stolen again, I'd still go after it myself. I wouldn't get the police. I wouldn't even bother calling the police until I found it.
In Toronto alone, more than 8,000 vehicles were reported stolen in 2022. Meg Roberts, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Nick Cernkovich joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Nick, gloomy skies and rain pretty much all day.
Yeah, this is like West Coast weather, Calvin. We've got lots of rainfall that happened through the day today. Here's a look at the picture from earlier on as that rainfall started. A little bit of mixed precipitation in the morning and then switching to rain for basically everybody as it swept across the GTA. A lot of rainfall, in excess of 20 millimeters in most places across the region. And now winds shifting to the southwest as this system pushes further to the east. Cooler weather moving in behind it. The risk of a few flurries as we move through tonight and tomorrow. By the time we hit tomorrow afternoon, we'll start to see some clearing sky cover. A lot of cloud cover, though, for the better part of the day, but it begins to clear out for tomorrow. Streamers begin to dissipate as well, and by Saturday, we're into lots in the way of sunshine. Here's a look at your forecast for the next 24 hours. 2 degrees tonight, a few tapering showers. Winds, though, gusts still to about 50 kilometers per hour through the overnight period. That lasts to tomorrow. High tomorrow of 5 degrees with clearing sky cover late in the day. Now, we'll tell you how long you can expect the sunshine to stick around coming up in just a bit.
Thanks so much, Nick. 2 people were rushed to hospital with serious injuries following an early morning fire in Leslieville. The flames broke out around 3 a.m. at a 4-story building near Eastern and Logan Avenues. A fire had broken out in an apartment on the 3rd floor. The building was evacuated and residents waited on a TTC bus to keep warm. They were allowed to return to their units a few hours later. The investigation into the cause is ongoing. Now, the 2 people who were rushed to hospital are now in stable condition. York Regional Police have arrested 2 Richmond Hill residents for allegedly trafficking millions of dollars worth of cocaine. Now, last month, police executed a search warrant for a storage locker in Vaughn and a home in Richmond Hill. Officers uncovered almost $9 million worth of cocaine and $260,000 in cash. Investigators also found luxury clothing worth more than $100,000. 30-year-old Alicia Coco and 39-year-old William Fung have been charged with possession for the purpose of trafficking and possession of the proceeds of crime. Premier Doug Ford says he had a productive meeting today with federal ministers on healthcare funding, but he says there's still work to do.
We have to consult with all the premiers right across the country, but it was a very positive meeting, and I'm very grateful for both ministers to come here in such short notice. But we all have the same objective, to make sure we deliver better health care.
Earlier today, the Premier and Ontario Health Minister Sylvia Jones met for about an hour at Queen's Park with Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Federal Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos. Now, this is the first one-on-one meeting between a province and the federal government since Ottawa unveiled its new healthcare funding proposal this week. Tomorrow, all the provincial and territorial leaders are scheduled to meet virtually to try to come up with a united front. Well, Queen's Park is one of the most iconic buildings in our city, and at 130 years old, it's also in need of some major renovations. As Lorena Redicott reports, it's work that could close the building for years and cost more than $1 billion.
It's a stately 130-year-old building. Impressive to look at. The history is everywhere, but there are problems. Check out the warning signs in the bathrooms. Because of lead pipes, it makes water coolers a must. There's also asbestos. The old radiators keep some rooms so hot, windows are cracked open all winter. So a Queen's Park committee took a road trip to Ottawa to learn what worked and what didn't on fix-up projects there. The reno at West Block took 7 years and cost $900 million.
They didn't put eaves troughs in because that wouldn't have been exactly heritage friendly, but now they have to clean all the walls all the time because of the drippage coming off of the roofs that, is staining the walls.
A staff estimate showed a full reno at Queen's Park could take 8 years. Another issue is technology. Bundles of wires everywhere in a building constructed well before internet or Wi-Fi. A repair job has been talked about for years, but is feeling more urgent.
As was presented by the folks who do the regular upkeep and maintenance, that the can has been kicked down the road for quite a while. And so now, the repairs are far more involved now. And that will only continue as the building continues to age.
The committee is considering a full building closure and moving the legislature elsewhere while that happens. Legislative Affairs Minister Paul Calandra says it would cost at least $1 billion. That's an amount the Canadian Taxpayers Federation says is too much. But one expert from the U of T believes it could add a couple hundred years to the building's life.
I think at the end of the day, like a root canal, we're always happy when it's over and done. But I don't think anyone should be, how can I say, candy coating this. This is going to be an expensive, painful, time-consuming process because of the nature of the project.
But he says people should temper their expectations.
It's like restoring, a really fine old automobile. It's still a vintage automobile. It's not going to have the features of the latest technology.
Nothing's been decided yet, and any possible closure is still a few years away. The committee's next job will be creating an interim report looking at the deficiencies at Queen's Park. Lorena Redicott, CBC News.
Welcome back. The death toll from the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria has now surpassed 20,000, and the concerns for the well-being of the hundreds of thousands of survivors is deepening. The first UN relief convoy arrived in Syria today, 3 days after the earthquake hit. Tents have been set up across the region, but many survivors are camping in parking lots or on roadsides in the winter cold. Many in the GTA are still desperately trying to reach family members who are in the affected region, and in some cases arrange to bring them here. Meanwhile, some Canadians who happen to be in the earthquake zone this week now want to stay and help. Tali Ricci has more.
For some Canadians, their trips to Turkey have taken a turn.
It was just a coincidence that in the middle of my trip, the earthquake had happened. I just put everything on the back burner and I start focusing on this terrible disaster.
Today we were deployed to a community center on the outskirts of Gaziantep.
Lucas Bolzo was volunteering in southern Turkey with youth before the earthquake hit.
Today we spent the day initially cleaning the community center, and later on we received and organized some of the supplies that have been coming in. Surprisingly, in the last half of the day, we organized spontaneous activities completely uncalled for with kids, which populate the camp.
Efforts to continue donations and send aid continue here in the GTA too. Those who are managing teams on the ground from Canada describe constant stress and sleepless nights.
We have the 4 golden days, whereas there is a possibility when you're pulling out bodies from and victims from under rubble. So there's a high potential to get them alive. So this is why we are working around the clock. Unfortunately, we expect this is today it's the last day we can't find people alive.
Organizations working in northwest Syria say they desperately need more resources. Aid reaching the area has been slowed by politics and logistical challenges.
We need heavy vehicles, heavy equipment, and fuel to support our operations.
And our volunteers yesterday, you can see the photos. We started to build, let's say, or make temporary shelter, which is we built a huge tent in the street. Nothing else. We cannot do anything because we didn't receive anything from the countries.
Some are desperately trying to bring their family members to safety.
Some planning to bring some close family members here. And I want to do this as soon as possible, but it's very hard. The Canadian government makes it very hard. This is a huge crisis. We're talking about life and death. We can't stand living here in a safe home and with water and electricity while our families are dying back home.
As Seema continues collecting donations, she's also feeling a sense of guilt.
Today, I'm doing my daily routine, and even doing that made me feel guilty. I like people like myself are going through the survivor guilt, and we are appreciating that we are alive, but we know that thousands of people lost their lives.
These last few days, it's the outpouring of support that's giving her hope.
The amount of the donations is actually tremendous. It's very, very emotional, very impressive. I'm a very proud Canadian.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's go back to Nick now with a look at your extended forecast, Nick. We had to contend with the rain today, but there is some sunshine on the way, which is always good to hear.
Yeah, lots of sunshine on the way for us, Kelda. Tomorrow, a little bit cloudy through the morning, I think clearing toward the afternoon, but then a good stretch of sunshine in the forecast. Still a windy night tonight and above seasonal temperatures as well, by the way. So it will be mild, but also sunny in our long range. Here's a look at the forecast. Tonight, cloud cover continues, the risk of a few showers or wet flurries heading into tomorrow morning. Very light, though, if we see any at all. And then as we head through the afternoon, still looking at these sort of west or northwesterly winds, dragging some streamers down off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Nothing very heavy, though, to speak of. As we move through tomorrow night, it begins to clear out. And then by Saturday, lots of sunshine for Saturday morning into Sunday, Monday as well. So good deal of sunshine to look forward to, at least for the weekend anyway. Here's a look at the winds, though. Still very breezy winds out of the southwest as we move through the overnight. Tomorrow morning, expect to see the winds ease off a little bit, down to about 50-kilometer-per-hour gusts. It still will be breezy, though, through the afternoon tomorrow. And then as we move through Friday night into Saturday, that's when the winds come down to more about 20 or 30 kilometers per hour. So light winds into the weekend, but at least for the next 24 hours or so, you can expect to see winds still gusting to at least 50 kilometers per hour. Mild night tonight. Now, again, to put this in perspective, average daytime highs for this time of year, about -2. We're looking at an overnight low tonight of +2. Into tomorrow, high of +5 degrees, and again, clearing sky cover, still kind of breezy. There is 0 as we head into Saturday, and that's where your sunshine really comes into play. Tomorrow, I think we're going to struggle to see the sunshine, but it will come back eventually. But by Saturday, certainly there. Sunday as well, straight sunshine. And again, look at these daytime highs, well into the positives there, anywhere from about 4, 5, even 6 degrees above the seasonal mark. Kelda.
Thanks so much. The Raptors wrapped up today's NBA trade deadline by acquiring center Jakob Poeltl from the San Antonio Spurs. And that was the only move the team made despite a whirlwind of rumors surrounding the team's main core leading up to the deadline. Raptors president Masai Ujiri spoke to the media this afternoon addressing why they didn't make many major moves.
The way I look at the deadline, it's really not a great place to make long-term decisions, and that's how one of the ways we looked at it in terms of some of the things we were getting.
Poeltl was drafted by the team in 2016 and was included in the trade for Kawhi Leonard. His addition to the Raptors gives the team a much-needed big man presence inside. The Raps currently sit 10th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 26-30 heading into the final half of the season. Finally tonight, customers at one of Japan's biggest department stores are wrapping themselves up in bean bags. But instead of sitting down, they are bouncing around or stretching out to relax. Customers love the warmth, the comfort, and the flexibility of this wearable beanbag. The man who invented it says the idea came from chilling at home during COVID. He calls it the next phase of nesting. The bag is proving a big hit on social media for obvious reasons. At $160, think of it like a massage wrapped up in a sweater. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Merval Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.